Okay. Firstly, Inspector Cannons, can I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to see me today? As part of my degree, I'm preparing a thesis on how modern policing has had to change as a result of the cuts in funding, how this has had affected the public and what the public perception is. I understand that you are a local policing inspector for North Worcestershire policing area and that you are able to answer some questions for me regarding the policing of Bewdley area of Worcestershire. There is a very large police station in Bewdley, which is one of the most prominent buildings in the centre of the town. The police station has not been in use since July 2013. Can you explain why this is the case?
Yeah, obviously the police have gone through some remodelling recently, and that's as a result of clearly the recession and the banking crisis. The government has looked at all public sector funding, and as part of West Mercia's efficiency savings last year, or sort of 2013 to 2015, we've been required in West Mercia to make efficiency savings of £30 million plus. Clearly, as part of that, what we have done is we have, as has been quite widely publicised, we have streamlined a lot of our services, and we've done that. Firstly, going into an alliance with Warwickshire Police, which has been quite widely publicised. And that has enabled us to streamline initially some of our back office facilities and services. Unfortunately, that clearly has led to some support staff leaving the organisation either on redundancy or through their own decisions. But that's allowed some savings in relation to that. Clearly, the sort of next part of the efficiency savings, both Warwickshire and West Mercia have quite a lot of assets in terms of building stock. Bewdley clearly is one of the police stations that we have as one of our assets. Our buildings clearly cost money to run, to service, and also furniture, IT equipment that we have to keep serviced and running within those buildings. And there are few officers that were parading from Bewdley really. So Bewdley is one of the estates that we've looked to clearly earmark for future, in the future not being used as a police station and potentially being sold off as one of our assets to initially save some money in the cost of the running of the building, but potentially future revenue through clearly selling the sale of the building. That's happened across the Alliance, so it's not just Bewdley we've looked at. There are other, obviously, buildings and stations that have been looked at as well. Buildings such as Withall and Hagley. Again, the same applies to them really. So we've looked at the whole building stock and our assets across the Alliance for Warwickshire and West Mercia. Now, certainly where Bewdley's concerned, there would have been few officers based at that police station. So albeit that there are officers that still police Bewdley, their patrol bases, as we've called them, will now be at Kidderminster. So that's sort of the main station and the main patrol base for police officers now.
Okay. Is there likely to be cutting police officers and PCSOs policing in the Bewdley area, do you think?
We've, as I say, we've just gone through very recently, in October last year, we went through a policing remodel, which clearly has led to a reduction in certainly certain areas of policing of North Worcestershire. The easiest way to describe it really is we have a safer neighbourhood team that would cover the Bewdley area, and then we also have a patrol function who are the 24-hour response teams. So essentially what's happened is the safer neighbourhood teams have become smaller, but we also have more, well, we're a bit smarter in the way that we're policing now in terms of the 24/7 cover. So for Bewdley, for example, you now have a policing inspector, a police sergeant, I think it's one safer neighbourhood officer, who's obviously clearly the local policing officer, 3 PCSOs and 3 special constables who will look after specifically the Bewdley area. However, on top of that, in terms of the patrol officers, that's obviously the 24-hour function, and those officers will be given certain patrol zones. One of those patrol zones will be Bewdley, and the officers are expected for the whole tour of their duty to actually patrol Bewdley. So you've got your safe neighbourhood team and your next layer, which is obviously your response officer, who will do the 24/7 policing when the safer neighbourhood teams aren't there. And clearly, in addition to that, you'll also have more specialist units, such as firearms units, who will be floating around the area, dog units, road policing units as well.
Okay, thank you. Is it known that there will be less constables in West Mercia, and what sort of things is the force doing to assist the officers that have left?
Right. Yeah, I think we've pretty well publicised in the press, certainly locally and nationally, the fact that West Mercia and Warwickshire have had to make these efficiency savings, and also how we've gone about that. And certainly since October, when we've had our people movement plan, where we have put officers into place and streamlined everything that we've done. Clearly, for the public, we've sort of told, sort of put it in terms of, do you want to keep buildings or do you want police officers? Because we can't, they both cost money, and clearly the overwhelming response from the public was, well, we would rather have police officers on the street, because essentially our police officers, when they're on duty, should be out and about on patrol in the communities, obviously protecting the community, and engaging with community members. So actually we don't want them sat behind a computer for 8 hours of their tour of duty in a police station. So that's kind of part of how we've sort of explained to the public that actually we don't necessarily need all of these buildings. As long as we've got a patrol base, the expectation is that our staff will clearly be out on patrol and doing what they need to do. So to support that, we did have a situation prior to sort of looking at and reviewing all our systems and processes. We had a situation where police officers had to come back to the police station to update anything on a computer. So if they went to an incident and they needed to do a statement, or they needed to update some paperwork, they would physically have to come back to the police station and update it on the computers at the police station. But the force, or the Alliance, Warwickshire and West Mercia, have invested in some new technology, which are essentially called Tetra tabs, but they're essentially just a little laptop computer that officers take out on patrol with them. Enables them to be self-sufficient.
Report back.
They can report back. If the control room send them to a job, they can instantly look at that incident on the computer screen, so they can get all the information from the computer screen. When they've actually dealt with the incident, they can come back to the vehicle and just sit, and they'll still be visible within the community. They'll still be available if a member of the public wants to speak to them, but they'll still be able to update everything. Basically, they've got an office on the move inside their vehicle, so it enables them to stay out of police stations, be more visible to the public, and actually the whole point of, although we've perhaps reduced officers, but we are probably more visible and out and about more often than we probably were before.
How have you been able to explain the new police instructor to the public, and what has the reaction been overall, would you say?
I would say initially, clearly when it went out in the press, I think there were lots of concerns, particularly at a local level, because I think when it goes out sort of nationally, you can't necessarily gauge the impact to the force, but I think locally is where people will come forward and tell you what their concerns are. So certainly what I've done and my team have done, we've actually, we clearly knew that there are going to be lots of changes coming. We as local policing inspectors have regular sort of public meetings and attend regular public meetings, both at a strategic level with sort of our local partners, such as our local councillors and other community providers and stakeholders. So I've made sure that in the run-up to our changes, that I've actually made sure that and been quite transparent and open about what kind of things we were looking at, and potentially what decisions would be made further down the line.